This time on my Year of Star Wars reviews, we're going to be looking at the final film in the original trilogy, Star Wars Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. Return of the Jedi this time around is directed by Richard Marquand and follows the story of Luke Skywalker as he tries to save Han Solo from the clutches of Jabba the Hutt, while also trying to defeat the Empire and defeat Darth Vader. Now, I'm going to say right off the bat, I love Return of the Jedi. It is by far my favorite Star Wars movie in the original trilogy and my favorite Star Wars movie overall. I love this movie. I can sit down and watch it anytime. That I can't really do with all the other Star Wars movies. I can just sit down and put this in the DVD player and just watch it. I love revisiting this film. That said, though it is my favorite Star Wars film, I don't think it is the best Star Wars film. That can be attributed to the first one or Empire Strikes Back. But nonetheless, I love this film, and a lot of that might be because this was the first Star Wars film I ever watched. Now, I didn't grow up watching the Star Wars movies. I didn't grow up in a household that taught me to watch them or told me to watch them. I kind of discovered them by myself. I remember being over at my cousin's, and they had the VHS copies of the original trilogy, and I didn't know which was the first one. I was really young at this time, and I think I just picked out a random one, and it was Return of the Jedi. And I still remember that experience watching the movie. I remember the amazing Jabba the Hutt scene. I remember the speeder bike chases. I remember the amazing fight with Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker, and just how that was just implanted in my brain. That memory was so vivid. And hopefully during the course of this review we can come to the conclusion of why this is my favorite Star Wars movie, as well as why I don't think it is the best Star Wars movie. First off, I want to mention how we got the Star Wars Return of the Jedi movie that we did. So if we go back to Empire Strikes Back went way over budget, and Irvin Kershner was not going to return for Return of the Jedi. In fact, George Lucas was kind of upset that he took a lot of money from him because of the fact that it went over budget. They were using George Lucas's money at this time. And so he brought in Richard Marquand to direct the film, as well as Lucas became much more involved with the making of this film than he did with Empire Strikes Back, and I think it can kind of show throughout the film. Right off the bat, from the start of this movie, the opening act, I think, is extremely fun. Just a fun, enjoyable ride, space adventure, and I think it really works after the downer ending of Empire Strikes Back. I think this Jabba the Hutt palace scene is a really fun time with a lot of just funny jokes, as well as just fun and adventure and some nice ass kicking. It's a lot of fun, and we also get to see the return of Han Solo, which, of course, if you all know, in Empire Strikes Back, he ends up in carbonite and is pretty much frozen, and we finally get him back, and it's really rewarding. However, even though I love this scene, I do have some problems with it, and that comes with the fact that it is a little too long. Now, I love the sequence on its own. I wouldn't cut any of it because I love it. However, for the purposes of the movie, it's a little too long. The scene, or the sequence, goes on for 40 minutes of a 2-hour plus film, and really, once you see that, basically the first act of this film is just meant to resolve the cliffhanger from Empire Strikes Back, and that is literally it. This sequence is not connected to anything in the rest of the film, really, except for getting Han Solo. It's not connected to the main plot or anything. So, we kind of get to the main plot of this film 40 minutes into it, which seems a tad too late. However, we do get a lot of great scenes. We get the Rancor scene, we get just Luke being a badass with his new lightsaber, and we also get Bikini Princess Leia, which, you know, we all love. We all love. Overall, it's a great scene, but those are my problems with that particular scene. Moving on to the rest of the film, though, we get some great sequences, such as the scene with the death of Yoda, which is a very well done and very emotional scene. You get such emotions out of this little puppet, and it works so well. And honestly, I found this out that this scene was not originally in the film or was made very late into the film. It was kind of just one of the random things that they ended up doing, and this is something that they do throughout the film, is they add a bunch of stuff that you can kind of tell wasn't supposed to originally happen, although I do think this Yoda death scene really does work, but it was something that was definitely added much later. Now we finally get to the planet of Endor, the planet of the Ewoks, and this is where I think the film kinda does falter a little bit. The problem with this film is its second act is almost non-existent. It's basically just the trio walking around a forest for, 30 some minutes and doesn't really have much plot progression except for a few instances of a speeder bike chase or trying to not be eaten by Ewoks and certain things like that that do break up the just fact that there's really nothing going on here. And right here, I do want to state that the Ewoks, a lot of people have problems with them. I think they're fine. I don't love them. I don't hate them. They're just there. And honestly, they're kind of cute. But yeah, I do want to mention about some sequences that I do like during this part of the film, and that being the speeder bike chase, which is a lot of fun with the Ewoks climbing on top of the speeder bikes, and also Luke and Leia chasing stormtroopers through the woods. It's a great sequence overall. However, it's definitely here that we see a decline in the special effects of the movie. Now, Richard Marquand was not a action-oriented director. He had never done something like this before, so I can understand why some of the effects of the film do not work as well as the other films. However, yeah, it doesn't look as good, such as during the speeder bike chase, the effects in the background with the speeder bikes in the foreground just don't look right, and we have a bunch of that throughout the film. However, I can say that the puppetry and the costumes of the Ewoks or Jabba the Hutt and all the creatures in the first act of the film are really well done. In fact, the best they have ever been. This is really good stuff in terms of puppetry. Finally, we get towards the final act of our film when we get the Leia reveal that Leia is indeed Luke's sister, and this scene I have a lot of problems with. In fact, I'm going to call it the problematic Leia reveal. This sequence was originally not going to happen. This sequence was kind of a last-minute thing that was added near the very end during production, most likely. In fact, Lucas had ideas of, after this movie, Luke was going to go looking for his sister out in space somewhere, and the Leia reveal came later, which it does feel very jarring. Everybody brings up the fact that, well, Luke was kind of in love with her, or that, well, they kissed, and there seemed to be maybe sort of this romantic relationship between them that, probably would have never developed because of the Han Solo stuff, but still it's there, and it is kind of weird and feels forced in because it kind of was. Because this film was also being written during production. They were writing the film, of course, before production started, but they were writing and rewriting stuff well into the production cycle. And it shows right here. Also during this film, you can also see that Lucas was definitely moving towards kind of the style of filmmaking he goes through in the prequels. You have a very extremely bloated first act of the film. Then you have just a second act that really doesn't have anything or much at all going on in terms of action. And then you have a third act where all hell breaks loose, and that's what this film basically is. In fact, this is what this film is. It has all those. It has a bloated first act, a very minimal second act, and a third act where all hell breaks loose. And in fact, I think it really does work. There is one thing I think that Lucas can do. He can save a third act in some moments, and he does here. The third act of this film is the reason why this is my favorite film of the Star Wars trilogy. I think this third act is practically perfect in every way. I love this third act. And mainly the stuff I love about it, okay, I love the stuff on Endor with the Battle of Endor. I think that's a fun sequence. I think the space battle of the Death Star 2 is really well done and really good. However, the best part of the third act and the best part of the movie is the final confrontation between Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, and the full introduction of the Emperor as Luke is being tempted by the dark side as well as having to face his father. It's a fantastic sequence of scenes. In fact, I think it's the best fight scene in the entire Star Wars trilogy. I love this fight scene. I love the color schemes of the red and green and just the blue of the Emperor's throne room. I still remember, just grained in my head, the sequence where they're fighting and the choral music starts playing. It's a wonderful sequence, and the moment where Darth Vader finally decides to destroy the Emperor is a fantastic scene that was ruined by the Blu-ray special editions. It just makes the scene just not work at all. It's so great just watching Darth Vader turn from Luke to the Emperor and just see him finally decide to side with his son. And the redemption of Darth Vader is a beautiful, beautiful sequence where they finally see each other with their own eyes, and it's just a heartwarming scene, and the death is so good, and the ending of this film with all of them celebrating on Endor and Luke seeing Obi-Wan, Yoda, and his father together in ghost form is fantastic. I think it's a great way to end the trilogy. Now, before I give my score for the movie, there are some stuff I also want to talk about, and this is something that has been a little problematic, but I think it also is kind of cool at the same time. That being the Death Star 2. Now, of course, the Death Star 2, it's like, why would you make another one? But thematically, I think it is really cool that this movie mimics the first movie. And I think I like that a lot because it really connects the trilogy as a whole together. You have the first movie that mirrors the third movie, and then you had that second one in the middle that is kind of its own thing, and it's all holding it together. In fact, you see this a lot in other trilogies as well, such as the Indiana Jones trilogy, the Dark Knight trilogy, the Spider-Man original Sam Raimi trilogy. You see this connection between the first movie and the third movie, and it kind of makes the entire trilogy as a whole just very well connected. And I love that this is kind of the movie that really did that. So yeah, that's basically what I think of Star Wars Return of the Jedi. I love sequences and just scenes in general and ideas of this film. I think the third act is absolutely fantastic in every way. However, it does have its share of problems that the original two films didn't have. They didn't have these problems with the writing, adding stuff in, the problematic Leia sequence, the all the different effects not exactly being up to par with the other two films. However, I can still say this is a solid movie that is very touching, especially near the end, and is a satisfying conclusion to the original Star Wars trilogy. Now, with all the problems I did say with this film, I could easily give this film a 7 out of 10. Even stretching it to a 6 out of 10, but it's not that bad. However, I can say that I'm gonna give Star Wars Return of the Jedi an 8 out of 10. Well, guys, that's my review of Return of the Jedi, my favorite Star Wars movie. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it was informative to you, but anyway, guys, that's all I got for you. So as always, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next review.